So this speech, although it's very persuasive, I try to be persuasive. I'm really pretty easy about it. This is a warm, fuzzy speech, or is meant to be, about warm, most of the time, warm, fuzzy animals. Specifically, German Shepherds, Belgian Shepherds, Swiss Mountain Dogs, all that sort of thing. I lived in California for 22 years. Came back about a little over 2 years ago. And when I was in California for 3 of those years, I worked at a shelter, an animal shelter in Costa Mesa. And somehow in Costa Mesa, in Southern California, had 3 animal shelters for German Shepherds. And then one in Los Angeles. So people came from a long ways to look at the German Shepherds and pick them up. And it was a lot of fun working there. The reason I left is basically I had moved to Las Vegas for a couple of years, and they didn't have the same sort of a setup. So I missed that part of my enjoyable life, so to speak. I want to talk about 4 dogs and the lessons I learned from each one. And when I first was at the shelter, because of my inability to walk fully and quickly, they said, well, just stay inside and play with the dogs. Put them out in this common area has kennels around it, and play with them. Toss balls, learn to pick up balls, get them to do different things. And that lasted for a little while. One of the dogs I let out of the cages. The person asked me to let this dog out of the cage and play with her. I was a little bit worried about that dog. It was aggressive. I'd already been told it didn't like men. I sensed it didn't like me. And so I let it out, and I was tossing a frisbee, and it was able to catch the frisbees and was enjoying itself. And then all of a sudden, I sensed, it stopped, it's kind of looking at me, that it might come close and bite. And I knew the worst thing I could do is to show any fear, to feel fear. Fight it down, be aggressive. I can handle this. Because if the dog senses fear, it's going to attack much more readily than if it doesn't sense fear. So I sort of got that under control, but as it was happening, every dog surrounding us started barking. It was just this real madhouse of barking. And I tossed her a few more frisbees, and I was able to toss one right into her cage, slammed the door behind her, and that was the end of that dog. I never took it out again. Later, I started walking dogs. And we walked them, and at first it was like walking start out with one dog, and then soon perhaps to 2 dogs, because there was like 40 dogs and there weren't that many walkers. So try to get each dog out twice a week, even 3 times a week. I'd go there a couple times a week. And I remember some of my first dogs, one of them was kind of pulling, wanting to get ahead. I wasn't keeping up with the group. I started out with the group, but I stayed pretty close. And the other dog, I had to sort of drag along. She couldn't keep up with me or didn't want to. And I realized maybe she knows that the quicker we end this walk, the quicker she'll be back in her cage for another 2 or 3 days. And I never really figured it out, or maybe she was tired and trying to slow, but I want to give her the credit and say that she was smart enough to see that. There were 2 dogs. My good friend who lived there in Costa Mesa and I were told that not to walk these dogs. They were St. Bernard, Shepherd mix. They were huge dogs, really big dogs. They're too strong, they pull you over. And we'd already had the experience. My friend had been walking 3 dogs, which was sort of foolishly, 200 pounds a dog, being walked by a 110-pound woman. They somehow pulled her off balance. And when I saw her coming the opposite direction, she was being pulled down the street. Couldn't get up. They were pulling her. Luckily, she was hanging on to the leashes. So I tied my dog up real quick to a light post or whatever was there, and then stopped the dogs, and then took one of them so that we had. The reason I tied up my dog, I wanted to make sure before we took the dogs with it, that this dog wouldn't start a fight with her 3 dogs, any of them. And so we wanted to make sure if we took them and got them back up, we could put them close together, let them introduce themselves, introduce each other and see if they liked each other. But Sid and Nancy we were told not to take them out. And then we decided once, well, let's try it. You know, when the manager isn't around, we'll try it sometime. Because those dogs have been sitting there for 3 years. They're totally morose. They get out maybe to play in the center of the area, but they really look sad. Nobody walked them. And the center one, the people that ran the place wanted to adopt them out together because they're inseparable. They were raised together, and so we started walking them and found out they're the most gentle dogs possible. They never went off to chase rabbits, you know, pull us off our balance, whatever. So we started walking them, and quite a bit. We gave them quite a bit of attention. Other people started walking them, and you could see the difference in their faces. They started really perking up. They were getting out of their cages. They were able to sniff things, able to walk on and sniff real grass instead of the fake grass that the kennel was using. And they got adopted. My other dog, there was 2 dogs. One was named Rainey, and she was an escape artist. She was able somehow to figure out how to reach her paw over and grab the latch even though she couldn't see it and escape. Once she escaped, it came out, and she liked me, and I walked her quite a bit. And I was just starting with the pit bull. I had just taken pit bull out of her cage, and Rainey somehow escaped and kept running in and said, the guy, someone's yelling, dog loose. And I had to kind of fight them to keep them apart, put her back, put my pit bull back in its cage for the latch, and I grabbed Rainey by the scruff of the neck, right behind the neck. And I heard that you could do that with dogs, and it'd calm right down. Somehow their mother does it with puppies to carry them, and they seem to relax. So I did this. I grabbed her by the scruff of the neck, walked her back to her cage, and all was fine. That was tip number 2. Number 3, another dog called Lady, named Lady, and she had a reputation for biting. She had bit a couple of men before me, and then once we met at a park, there's 2 or 3 of us, we'd walk into a park, let them play, and Lady sort of came up behind me and bit me on the calf. I always will have 4 marks on each side of my calf from that dog bite. And I thought about it, decided, no, she's 1 year old, she's kind of an overgrown puppy. And she bites because she's playing. She gets excited and playing. So I took her out myself, started walking her, and took her down to the park and played with her, kind of roughed her up. And sure enough, she'd go for my leg. No, Lady, you know, slap her a little bit on the nose. And within 2 or 3 times, she was sort of like, she'd go for it, and then she looked apologetic, at least that was my definition. She looked apologetic. But anyway, I trained her not to bite me or anyone else. That was good. Dogs can be trained with love and that. See, I'm running out of time. There's a couple of other things I want to do. Just mention, one time if you're walking a dog, or you have a dog or whatever, and starts barking, or other dogs are barking at it, it's all concerned, turn it around. Walk right around with it. You know, walk a circle if you have to. That'll usually divert their attention. Also, when you praise a dog, praise a good dog, but use a higher pitch to your tone instead of good dog, good dog, good dog. It knows the difference and it'll recognize it. I hope, I run out of time, I'm way over, but I hope I persuaded at least someone here to give dog walking a try. It's a wonderful experience. Thank you.